The massive window of the Coalition battleship Star Guard offered Admiral Gray a perfect view of another world dying. He stood with his hands clasped behind his back, watching as bright flashes of green and red lit up the dark space around planet Nexus. Each flash meant another ship was destroyed, another crew lost to the endless war. "Status report," he ordered, his voice tired but firm. The bridge crew worked quickly at their stations, their four-fingered hands moving across holographic displays. "Sir, we've lost contact with defense platforms 3 through 7, Officer Reed reported. "The Dominion fleet has broken through our outer defense line. Their numbers are overwhelming." Gray closed his eyes for a moment. Nexus was home to 5 billion Coalition citizens. Now it would fall, just like dozens of worlds before it. The Dominion's massive warships, shaped like giant arrowheads, pushed forward relentlessly. Their energy weapons cut through Coalition ships like they were made of paper. "How many civilian ships have escaped?" Gray asked, though he dreaded the answer. "Less than half of the evacuation fleet has made it to safe jump distance," Reed replied. His skin changed from its normal blue to a pale gray, a sign of deep distress among his species. "The rest are still vulnerable. The Dominion is targeting them specifically." Gray's fists clenched. The Dominion showed no mercy, not even to civilian vessels. This war had raged for over 3 centuries, and with each passing year, it grew more brutal. The Coalition fought for freedom and self-determination. The Dominion fought for total control. Neither side would back down. "Sir," another officer called out, "Dominion battleships are launching boarding pods toward the refugee ships." Gray spun around. "Intercept those pods. Divert all fighter squadrons to protect the civilians." He watched as his own fighters, sleek and agile, rushed to defend the slow-moving evacuation ships. But for every boarding pod they destroyed, 3 more took its place. Through the window, he saw a civilian transport explode in a brilliant flash of light. The ship had self-destructed rather than allow its passengers to fall into Dominion hands. Gray understood why. The stories of what happened to captured Coalition citizens were too horrible to contemplate. "Send a message to High Command," Gray ordered. "Nexus has fallen. Request immediate reinforcements to cover the refugee evacuation." He paused, then added, "and inform the Galactic Council. Another world burns while they debate." The Galactic Council, supposedly the peacekeepers of the galaxy, had proven useless. For 300 years, they had called for peace talks and ceasefires. For 300 years, the Dominion had ignored them. The Council had no real power, no way to enforce their declarations. "Admiral," Reed spoke up, his voice shaking. "The Dominion's main fleet is moving into position. They're preparing to bombard the planet." Gray watched helplessly as massive Dominion warships moved into formation around Nexus. Their weapons began to glow with deadly energy. Soon, they would rain death upon the surface, destroying everything they couldn't control. "How many civilians are still planetside?" he asked quietly. "At least 3 billion, sir." The evacuation had barely begun. 3 billion souls. Gray felt the weight of each one. He had failed them all. His ships were too few, too weak to stop what was coming. The Coalition's best technology, their strongest weapons, meant nothing against the Dominion's overwhelming force. "Order all remaining ships to cover the refugee fleet's retreat," Gray commanded. "We save who we can." He turned away from the window, unable to watch as the bombardment began. The bridge lit up with the reflected light of destruction. As his ship jumped to safety, carrying the survivors to distant Coalition worlds, Gray made a silent promise. Somehow, somewhere, there had to be a way to end this nightmare. The galaxy couldn't survive much more of this endless war. He didn't know it yet, but the answer was closer than anyone imagined. In a distant, overlooked star system called Sol, humanity was about to change everything. 3 weeks after the fall of Nexus, Admiral Gray stood on the bridge of his new command ship, the Star Seeker. The loss of their previous vessel still haunted the crew, but they had work to do. The Coalition couldn't afford to let ships sit idle, not with the Dominion pushing deeper into their territory every day. "Standard patrol route, Officer Reed?" Gray asked, studying the star map floating in front of him. Reed shook his head, his blue skin brightening with excitement. "Sir, our sensors picked up something unusual in Sector 47. Well, you should see this yourself." The star map zoomed in on a small, unremarkable section of space. Most ships avoided this area. It contained nothing but primitive worlds that hadn't achieved spaceflight. But there, clear as day, was an energy signature unlike anything Gray had seen before. "What am I looking at?" he asked, leaning closer to the hologram. "That's just it, sir," Reed replied. "We don't know. It's not Coalition technology, and it definitely isn't Dominion. The energy pattern doesn't match anything in our database." Gray's 4 hearts beat faster. In 300 years of war, both sides had copied and countered each other's technology so many times that genuine surprises were rare. But this was new. "Show me the source," he ordered. The map shifted again, focusing on a small yellow star, third planet from the sun, blue and green, wrapped in white clouds. According to Coalition records, it was called Earth, home to a species that had barely reached their moon. "Impossible," Gray muttered. "These readings suggest advanced warp technology." But the last survey showed them using chemical rockets. "The survey was 50 years ago, sir," Reed pointed out. "We've been too busy with the war to check on primitive worlds." Gray studied the readings more carefully. The energy signature was strange, efficient in ways he didn't understand. Coalition ships left massive disturbances in space when they traveled. This signature was barely there, like a whisper instead of a shout. "Sir," another officer called out, "we're picking up communications. They're using old-style radio waves, but the encryption is like nothing we've seen. We can't break it." Gray made his decision. "Plot a course to this Earth. Maximum stealth protocols. I want to see what they're hiding." The Star Seeker changed direction, its engines humming quietly. As they traveled, more data poured in. The humans, as they called themselves, were broadcasting all sorts of signals into space. Most were entertainment or news, normal things for a developing civilization. But hidden among them were burst transmissions sophisticated enough to give Coalition code breakers headaches. "Look at this, sir," Reed said, pulling up an image. "They're orbital stations. They're primitive, but the design is fascinating. No energy shields, but the hull geometry would deflect most weapon types naturally." Gray watched the data accumulate with growing interest. These humans were doing everything differently. Where Coalition ships used energy fields for protection, humans used clever engineering. Where Dominion vessels broadcasted their power openly, human stations hid their capabilities behind layers of misdirection. "Sir, new contact," an officer shouted. "Large vessel just appeared at the edge of our sensor range. It's heading straight for us." The main screen lit up with an image that made Gray's jaw drop. A ship, sleek and dark, moving through space like a predator. No energy weapons bristling from its sides, no shield bubble surrounding it. Just smooth lines and what looked like were those primitive projectile weapons. "How did they spot us?" Reed asked, amazed. "We're running full stealth." Gray smiled for the first time since Nexus fell. "It seems," he said quietly, "that we've been underestimating this world. Open a channel. Let's meet these humans properly." The message that came back was short and clear, in perfect Coalition standard language. "Coalition vessel Starseeker, this is HMS Thunder. Welcome to Sol Space. We've been expecting you." Admiral Gray stared at the message floating on his screen. The humans had not only detected his stealth ship, but had been waiting for it. Even more surprising, they spoke perfect Coalition standard language. He looked at the human vessel again, the HMS Thunder. It was smaller than his ship, but radiated a quiet confidence that made him uneasy. "Sir," Reed asked nervously, "should we raise shields?" Gray shook his head. "No, they could have attacked already if they wanted to. Let's talk instead." He straightened his uniform, opened a visual channel. The main screen flickered to life, showing the Thunder's bridge. Gray had seen images of humans before, but these were different from the primitive tribes in the survey photos. They wore crisp black uniforms with simple rank markings. Their captain stood in the center of the screen, looking remarkably calm for someone making first contact. "I am Captain Jack Stone of the HMS Thunder," the human said. "We've been monitoring your war for quite some time, Admiral Gray." Gray's 4 hearts skipped a beat. "How do you know my name?" Stone smiled. "The same way we know about the fall of Nexus, the Dominion's advance, and the Coalition's declining strength. We've been watching, learning, and preparing." "Preparing for what?" Gray asked, though he suspected he knew the answer. "To enter the galactic stage," Stone replied. "But we wanted to do it on our terms. Your stealth technology is impressive, Admiral, but we detected your ship 3 days ago. We've been testing our sensors against Coalition and Dominion ships for years." Reed's skin turned pale blue with shock. "Years? But we never saw you." "That was the point," Stone said. "While your civilizations focused on bigger ships and stronger weapons, we developed different technologies. Stealth, deception, ways to hide in plain sight." Gray studied the human ship more carefully now. What he had thought were primitive projectile weapons were actually mass drivers, weapons that could accelerate small objects to incredible speeds. No energy signature, no warning before they fired. The ship's dark hull seemed to swallow light itself. "Why reveal yourselves now?" Gray asked. "Because you're losing the war," Stone said simply. "The Dominion grows stronger while the Coalition retreats. We've run the numbers. Without intervention, they'll reach Earth in less than 5 years. We prefer to choose the time and place of our entrance." A new screen appeared, showing detailed scans of Dominion fleet movements. The humans had better intelligence than the Coalition's best spies. They had mapped supply lines, staging areas, and weak points that Gray hadn't even known existed. "This is impossible," Reed whispered. "Their technology looks primitive, but we think differently," Stone finished. "We had to. Earth's resources are limited compared to your world's. We couldn't match your energy weapons or shield technology, so we found other solutions, more efficient ones." Gray felt hope for the first time since Nexus fell. These humans were unlike any species he had encountered. They didn't try to copy Coalition or Dominion technology. They had developed their own path entirely. "What are you proposing, Captain Stone?" "A demonstration," Stone replied. "Let us show you what the Thunder can do. One ship against a Dominion patrol. If we impress you, we can discuss an alliance." Gray thought about his devastated fleet, about the billions lost on Nexus, about the seemingly unstoppable Dominion advance. What did he have to lose? "Very well," he said. "There's a Dominion patrol fleet 2 systems over. They've been harassing our supply lines." Stone nodded. "Perfect. Follow us, Admiral Gray. It's time to show the galaxy that there's more than one way to fight a war." As the Thunder moved ahead of his ship, Gray watched it slip in and out of visibility, like a ghost in space. Perhaps, he thought, the age of energy weapons and brute force was about to end. Perhaps what the galaxy needed was humanity's gift for finding unexpected solutions. The Star Seeker hung back at a safe distance while the HMS Thunder approached the Dominion patrol fleet. Admiral Gray counted 5 Dominion warships, each one bigger than the human vessel. Under normal circumstances, this would be suicide. "Are they really going to attack alone?" Reed asked, his skin shifting to worried purple. "Watch," Gray replied, curious to see what the humans would do. The Dominion ships noticed the Thunder immediately. Their energy shields blazed to life, creating the familiar bubble of protection around each vessel. Their weapon ports opened, energy weapons charging with bright purple light. But the thunder did something strange. Instead of raising shields or charging weapons, it launched what looked like small pieces of metal into space. Hundreds of them, scattering in all directions. "Sir," Reed reported, checking his instruments, "the Dominion ships are confused. Those metal pieces are giving off false signals. They can't tell which one is the real thunder anymore." Gray leaned forward, fascinated. The pieces of metal decoys, he realized. Each mimicked the thunder's signature perfectly. The Dominion ships turned in circles, trying to target the real vessel among hundreds of copies. "Where's the real thunder?" Gray asked. Reed shook his head. "I don't know, sir. We lost track of it too." Suddenly, one of the Dominion ships exploded. Not from an energy weapon, but from what looked like solid metal shots passing straight through its shields. The shots moved so fast, they couldn't be seen until they hit. The thunder appeared for a split second behind the explosion, then vanished again. "Impossible," Reed exclaimed. "Their shields were designed to stop energy weapons," Gray finished, "not physical objects moving at those speeds." Another Dominion ship died, torn apart by more invisible shots. The remaining 3 ships fired wildly at the decoys, their energy weapons passing harmlessly through the false images. The thunder was using their own tactics against them. Dominion ships always targeted the biggest energy signatures, but the thunder barely gave off any energy at all. "Message from Captain Stone," an officer announced. "Put it through," Gray ordered. Stone's voice was calm, as if he was conducting a simple training exercise. "Notice how they bunch together for protection, Admiral. A natural response, but it makes them predictable." The 3 remaining Dominion ships had indeed grouped up, their shields overlapping for better defense. It was standard coalition tactics too. Strength in numbers, combined shield power. "Now watch this," Stone said. The thunder appeared right in front of the Dominion formation. But instead of firing, it launched something new. A cloud of what looked like dust. The tiny particles passed through the shields like they weren't even there, then stuck to the hulls of all 3 ships. "What are those?" Gray asked. "Nanites," Stone replied. "Very small machines. Individually, they're too small to trigger shield defenses. Together." The dust began to glow. All 3 Dominion ships suddenly lost power, their shields failing, their weapons going dark. The nanites had eaten through their power systems in seconds. "You see, Admiral," Stone explained, "while you and the Dominion built bigger weapons, we thought smaller. Why waste energy fighting shields when you can slip right through them?" The thunder reappeared next to the powerless Dominion ships. 1 shot from its main gun was all it took to finish them. 5 Dominion warships destroyed, and the thunder hadn't taken a single hit. That's not possible," Reed stammered. "Their technology looked so simple, but we had to think differently," Stone finished. "Humanity learned long ago that the most powerful weapon isn't strength, it's surprise. Now, Admiral Gray, shall we discuss that alliance? I believe we have some ideas about how to end this war." Gray looked at the debris floating where 5 superior Dominion ships had been. 1 human ship had just done what an entire coalition battle fleet couldn't do. For the first time in years, he felt real hope. "Yes, Captain Stone," he said. "I believe we have a lot to discuss." The meeting room aboard the Star Seeker was crowded with both coalition and human officers. Admiral Gray sat at one end of the table, while Captain Stone stood at the other, pointing to a holographic display of Dominion territory. "The Dominion's greatest strength," Stone explained, "is actually their greatest weakness. They think they're invincible." The display zoomed in on the Dominion's main fleet base. Hundreds of massive warships filled the space around a fortress-like station. Energy shields created a web of purple light between them, making the base look impenetrable. "Their shields will stop any coalition attack," Reed said, his skin a doubtful shade of green. "Yes," Stone agreed, "they will. Which is exactly why we won't attack their shields at all." He pressed a button, and the display changed to show the HMS Thunder schematics. We've modified our ship to carry enough nanites to disable their entire defensive grid. But we need your help to get close enough. Gray studied the plan carefully. It was crazy, dangerous, and completely different from anything the Coalition had tried before. It was also their best chance to end the war. The Coalition Council will never approve this, Reed warned. It's too risky. If we fail, Gray cut in. We lose nothing. The Dominion is already winning. But if we succeed, we end this war in one battle. Stone nodded. Exactly. The Dominion expects big fleets, direct attacks, energy weapons. They've spent centuries preparing for that, but they've never faced anything like the Thunder. The human officers shared knowing looks. Their Lieutenant Walker stepped forward, pointing to different parts of the base. We've identified their weak points, Walker explained. Power stations, command centers, shield generators. The Dominion protects them all with energy shields, but they've never considered threats small enough to slip through those shields. Gray watched as the plan unfolded on the display. It was elegant in its simplicity. The Coalition fleet would launch a traditional attack, drawing the Dominion's attention. Meanwhile, the Thunder would slip in using its stealth technology, release its nanites, and disable the entire base before they knew what hit them. Your ship will be deep in enemy territory, Gray pointed out. If anything goes wrong, we've planned for that too, Stone said with a slight smile. He pressed another button, and new images appeared, hundreds of small, sleek ships hidden in asteroid fields around Dominion space. What are those? Reed asked, leaning forward. We call them ghost ships, Walker explained. Automated vessels, each carrying enough nanites to disable a Dominion warship. We've spent years positioning them. One signal from the Thunder, and they all activate. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. The humans hadn't just been watching the war. They'd been preparing for this moment, setting up pieces across the board like a giant game of chess. You've thought of everything, Gray said finally. We had to, Stone replied. Earth might be far from your war, but we knew it would reach us eventually. We chose to act first, on our terms. Gray stood up, his decision made. I'll convince the council. When can we start? The Thunder is ready now, Stone said. We've trained for this mission for years. Every crew member knows exactly what to do. And the ghost ships, in position and waiting. One word from us, and the largest trap in galactic history springs shut. Gray looked around the room at the mix of human and Coalition officers. Together, they represented the galaxy's best chance for peace. The humans' careful planning and unconventional thinking, combined with the Coalition's strength and resources. Very well, Gray announced. Let's end this war. Captain Stone, prepare your ship. In 3 days, we launch Operation Nightfall. As the officers filed out to begin preparations, Gray watched the humans discussing final details with his crew. They looked so simple, so unassuming. The Dominion would never expect these apparently primitive beings to be their downfall. That, of course, was exactly why it would work. Operation Nightfall began exactly as planned. The Coalition fleet, led by Admiral Gray's Starseeker, jumped into the Dominion base system with weapons blazing. Hundreds of ships emerged from warp, forming battle lines just as they had done countless times before. The Dominion responded exactly as expected. Their massive fleet moved to meet the threat, energy shields creating a wall of purple light across space. Their commander's voice boomed across all channels. Coalition fools, he said. You dare attack our main base. Today your rebellion ends. Gray allowed himself a small smile. The Dominion commander sounded so confident, so sure of victory. He had no idea what was coming. All ships, battle formation. Gray ordered. Draw them out. Make it look good. The Coalition fleet engaged in a traditional battle dance. Energy weapons flashed back and forth across space. Ships maneuvered in familiar patterns. To anyone watching, it looked like another desperate coalition attack. But where was the thunder? The human ship had vanished the moment the battle began. Its stealth systems, combined with the chaos of combat, made it completely invisible. Even Gray's sensors couldn't find it. The battle raged for 20 minutes. The coalition fleet took hits but kept fighting, drawing more and more Dominion ships away from their base. The Dominion commander grew increasingly suspicious. "What are you planning, Admiral Gray?" he demanded. "This attack makes no sense. Your fleet cannot win." "Maybe not," Gray replied, watching his tactical display carefully. "But winning isn't always about who has the biggest fleet." That's when it happened. Deep inside Dominion territory, the thunder appeared for just a second. It was right next to the base's main power core, already launching its cloud of nanites. By the time the Dominion sensors detected it, it was too late. The nanites spread like a silver mist through the base's shield grid. Alarms blared across Dominion channels as system after system began to fail. Shield generators died. Weapon ports went dark. Communication arrays fell silent. "What's happening?" The Dominion commander shouted. "How are you doing this?" "We're not doing anything," Gray replied calmly. "We're just the distraction." The thunder appeared again, this time broadcasting on all frequencies. Captain Stone's voice rang clear and confident. "Attention Dominion fleet," he announced. "Look around you. Look carefully." The Dominion ships did look, and what they saw terrified them. Hundreds of small ships were appearing from behind asteroids and debris fields. The ghost ships, hidden for years, were awakening. Each one carried enough nanites to disable a Dominion warship. "Impossible," the Dominion commander gasped. "Those ships, they're human-designed. The humans are primitives." "That's what we wanted you to think," Stone replied. "Ghost Fleet, execute Pattern Omega." The ghost ships struck like silent predators. They didn't fire weapons or launch fighters. They simply released their nanite clouds and watched as ship after ship lost power. The mighty Dominion fleet, with all its advanced technology, was helpless against an enemy they couldn't shield against. "This is your only warning," Stone announced. "Your base is disabled. Your fleet is powerless. Surrender, or we'll demonstrate what else our primitive technology can do." Gray watched in amazement as the entire Dominion fleet, over 500 ships, went dark. 3 centuries of war ended by one human ship and its hidden fleet of robots. The Dominion commander's next words were something no one had ever heard before. We surrender." The coalition crews cheered. Ship after ship reported success as the Ghost Fleet finished its work. The Thunder reappeared next to the Starseeker, its mission accomplished. "Captain Stone," Gray said quietly, "you did it. You actually did it." "We did it together, Admiral," Stone replied. "Now comes the hard part." "Hard part?" "Yes," Stone said, "making sure this peace lasts. But first, let's secure the Dominion leadership. I believe they're overdue for some negotiations." 1 month after Operation Nightfall, the Great Hall of the Galactic Council was more crowded than ever before. Representatives from every spacefaring race had gathered to witness something historic: the signing of the Galactic Peace Accords. Admiral Gray stood near the main platform, watching as Coalition and Dominion leaders sat together for the first time in 3 centuries. Captain Stone stood beside him, looking oddly comfortable in his formal uniform. "Nervous?" Gray asked the human. "About the peace?" "No," Stone replied. "About all the attention Earth is getting. Maybe a little." He had good reason to be concerned. News of humanity's role in ending the war had spread like wildfire across the galaxy. Every major power was scrambling to establish relations with Earth. The supposedly primitive planet had become the most talked-about world in known space. The council leader stood to speak, her voice carrying across the hall. "Today marks not just the end of a war, but the beginning of a new age. Through the wisdom and ingenuity of humanity, We have learned that strength alone does not determine victory. Innovation, creativity, and the courage to think differently. These are the true keys to progress. Gray watched as various alien diplomats studied the human delegation with newfound respect. The same species they had dismissed as primitive had accomplished in one battle what the Council had failed to do for centuries. The humans have taught us all a valuable lesson, the Council leader continued. While we focused on making our existing technologies stronger, they found entirely new ways to solve problems. Their different perspective may well be the key to solving other challenges our galaxy faces. Stone shifted uncomfortably as several alien representatives nodded in his direction. They're going to be disappointed, he whispered to Gray. We don't have all the answers. No, Gray agreed, but you have something just as valuable, a different way of thinking. Look what you achieved with just one ship and some creative planning. The ceremony proceeded as the peace accords were signed. The Dominion agreed to withdraw from conquered territories. The Coalition promised to help rebuild worlds damaged by the war. And humanity, represented by Captain Stone, signed as the guarantor of the peace, a position that would have seemed laughable just months ago. After the ceremony, various alien leaders approached Stone with questions and proposals. Some wanted to trade technology. Others sought military alliances. A few simply wanted to understand how humans thought. Captain Stone, one alien diplomat, asked, "Will Earth share its nanite technology with others?" Stone smiled diplomatically. "We believe sharing technology without sharing understanding is dangerous. We're happy to teach our problem-solving methods, though. That's more valuable than any single invention." Gray watched as the aliens considered this. They were beginning to understand that humanity's real strength wasn't their technology. It was their ability to think outside traditional boundaries. Later, as the celebrations continued, Gray found Stone standing at a window, looking out at the stars. Having second thoughts about revealing Earth to the galaxy, Gray asked. Stone shook his head. "No. We knew we couldn't stay hidden forever. Better to join the galactic community on our own terms. Besides," he added with a smile, "someone needs to keep an eye on that peace treaty." The ghost ships. Still out there, still watching. A reminder that size and strength aren't everything. Gray nodded in understanding. The humans hadn't just ended a war. They had changed how the galaxy thought about warfare, technology, and progress. Their primitive world had become a symbol of innovation and creative thinking. "What's next for the Thunder?" he asked. "Exploration," Stone replied. "There's a whole galaxy out there, full of problems to solve and mysteries to unravel. And this time," he added, looking at Gray, "we'll do it together with our new allies." As they stood there watching the stars, Gray realized that the galaxy had entered a new age. Not an age of bigger weapons or stronger shields, but an age of innovation and cooperation. And it had all started with the arrival of a single human warship.